Up until now, the remaining parts of the earliest dogs are practically difficult to differentiate from wolves. Their skeletons, their genomes, and the isotopic signatures of their eating regimens all look such an excess of like wolves that archaeologists can't dependably say who's who. The most established creature that is obviously a canine lived around 15,000 years prior in what is presently Germany. Researchers utilized genetics to attempt to narrow it down. Since genomes gather little irregular transformations at an unpredictable rate, geneticists can look at genome groupings and tell how quite a while in the past two creatures last shared a typical precursor. Researchers used already sequenced genomes from ancient and modern dogs to calculate when populations had split or interbred, and then they repeated the process with human genomes. Their outcomes propose that individuals in northern Siberia domesticated the Maine dogs at some point before 23,000 years back. Like a few other ongoing genetic examinations have perceived, researchers saw that dog and human gatherings would in general part or converge in generally similar occasions and places, making a genetic guide of our species' shared journey. The circumstance of one of those parts, around 16,000 years prior, firmly proposes that the primary individuals to enter the Americas carried dogs with them. A major split in both dog and human populations occurred somewhere in the range of 16,000 and 15,000 years back. Archaeological evidence reveals to us that as of now, individuals were advancing south along the Pacific shoreline of North America, traveling past the edges of the gigantic ice sheets that actually covered the greater part of the continent. Simultaneously, another part of dogs split off from the Arctic dog population, which incorporates current Siberian Huskies. The branch is called haplogroup A2b, and it's the maternal ancestry of all native North American dogs. Mitochondrial DNA from ancient and current dogs recommends that the dogs of haplogroup A2b last imparted a typical ancestor to Siberian Huskies around 16,400 years back, about the time the primary individuals were crossing the Bering Land Bridge and moving into North America. The time span is amazingly predictable with that of the first people of the America. Bow wow how? Survival of the friendliest. Siberian archaeological sites dating to the last glacial maximum are rare, and they mostly uncover individuals living in little, disengaged gatherings. The Ice Age scene wouldn't have upheld huge gatherings of individuals in any one spot, and significant distance head-out expected to keep remote associated would have been nearly unimaginable once the Beringian standstill set in. In light of genetic, archaeological, and paleoclimate evidence, it appears to be likely that in the unforgiving states of the last glacial maximum, most gatherings of individuals in Siberia were grouped in little territories called refugia, places where the territory and the nearby environment made endurance somewhat simpler. Refugia would have shielded some palatable plants, which pulled in the game species individuals depended on for food, garments, and devices. Climatic conditions may have brought human and wolf populations into closeness inside refugial regions, given their appreciation for a similar prey animal types that put wolves and people in relatively lacking elbow room, both attempting to endure. Canine comprehension analyst Brian Hare depicts what occurred next as endurance of the most amicable. Individuals and wolves probably rummaged every other's slaughters, and some fearless wolves probably hung out around the edges of human camps, searching pieces. No gathering of tracker finders equipped with lances would have endured forceful hunters prowling around their flames, nonetheless. Wolves that attempted to assault individuals rather than simply taking their trash probably didn't live very long. More than millennia, that implied that wolves who were adequately fearless to wander close to human camps and friendly enough not to nibble the hands that took care of them endure. Also, they began to carry on with very various lives from wolves that evaded people through and through. Eventually, at some point before 23,000 years prior, those friendly wolves developed into something new. Different researchers have discovered that as wild species like wolves, foxes, and even cows and pigs go through taming, their appearance likewise changes. Spots, floppy ears, and bended tails all appear to be important for the genetic bundle, alongside curiosity and kind disposition toward people. That is why present-day dogs look such a lot of more friendlier than Ice Age wolves. Unfortunately, you won't discover numerous dogs from haplogroup A2b in the Americas today. There are a few dogs that have modest quantities of those genealogies, for example, the Carolina dog, or a few Chihuahuas, yet most dogs in the Americas today all genetically appear as though European varieties, an atomic researcher at Brown University told the researchers. Like the number of Native Americans were slaughtered by Europeans through fighting and illness, their dogs were likely additionally focused by European colonizers and passed on from sicknesses from European dogs, she said. Also, when Europeans brought their dogs with them in large numbers, European breeds eventually replaced a lot of the genetic lineages we see in these ancient dogs. However, the mitochondrial DNA of antiquated dogs discloses to us that when the principal Americans wandered across the limited segment of Beringia and into another continent, they brought their dogs along. Furthermore, similarly as dogs assisted individuals with chasing, following, and ensuring themselves in Eurasia, they probably helped the first indigenous people in the Americas survive as well. Dogs were essential for a bigger social collection that may have helped people in quickly scattering into and all through the northern hemisphere. We at last realize who let the dogs out, probably. For 2,000 or 3,000 years prior to relocating to the Americas, in any case, those fearless wayfarers and their dogs lived in Ice Age Siberia. There, genetic evidence recommends they were mostly cut off from everyone else on the planet. DNA from ancient human remaining parts discloses to us that few genetically particular gatherings of individuals lived in Siberia at that point, yet they apparently quit trading qualities a couple thousand years before individuals originally wandered into Beringia. Paleogeneticists consider this period the Beringian standstill. On the off chance that the inevitable first Americans had dogs, they probably had them before the Beringian standstill began. Evaluations of how long the Beringian standstill endured vary on the grounds that atomic DNA, Y chromosome DNA, and mitochondrial DNA all reveal to us slightly various things. However, it was probably somewhere close to 2,400 and 9,000 years back. Before it set in, however, the ancestors of native North Americans had traded incidental DNA with another gathering of individuals called ancient northern Siberians. Truth be told, the two gatherings of individuals had a long history. Ancestral Native Americans expand from the ancient northern Siberian population around 24,000 years back, yet from that time until the Beringian standstill set in, the two gatherings continued blending occasionally. Meanwhile, ancient dog genomes disclose to us that dog haplogroup A2, the branch that incorporates the American haplogroup A2b just as Siberian Huskies, split off from the dog family tree around 22,800 years back, close to the hour of the human population split and the beginning of Ice Age segregation. Here's researchers propose the entirety of this evidence focuses to ancient North Siberians domesticated dogs at some point before 23,000 years back. At the point when ancestral North Americans diverged to turn into their own population, they took their dogs with them. A couple thousand years after the fact, the relatives of those dogs and their kin strolled into North America together. It's a testable hypothesis. Stays of ancient dogs like one from the Afantova Gora site in Siberia could hold ancient mitochondrial DNA that could fill in a portion of the spaces in canine history. Concerning steps, at this moment we're expecting to succession extra dog genomes, especially those from Siberia and close to Beringia, to try to limit the circumstance of dog taming and clarify when dogs went to the Americas. One more piece of evidence focuses to the ancient northern Siberians as the individuals who previously domesticated dogs. Like ancestral Native Americans, gatherings of individuals in Western Eurasia additionally got in on the quality trading with the ancient northern Siberians. Those associations could help clarify how dogs likewise arrived at focal Europe at around a similar time they arrived at the Americas. This depends on long, yet utterly informal experience as a dog individual, they will run off. So regardless of whether the people's cooperation was brief, I can easily see a dog or dogs choosing to go jogging after the children in the gathering they just met when they disappear. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more videos.